Sarah Mitchell had grown used to staring at a plate of scrambled eggs left to cool, a silent witness on her kitchen table each morning for 437 long days. The old clock in the hallway, a cherished wedding gift from David's parents 32 years ago, kept its steady beat, its ticking a reminder that time never paused, even when her heart did. Outside her farmhouse window, the Vermont winter draped everything in soft layers of white and grey, matching the emptiness she felt since David's sudden heart attack turned her whole world upside down. The 20-acre land on the edge of Burlington had once been their shared dream, a place transformed by David's vision into a charming homestead over 30 years of hard work, where every fence post, barn board, and planted tree was a memory of his loving touch. As the day began anew, the quiet air seemed to whisper promises of unexpected change. Rebecca, her daughter living far away in Seattle, called every Sunday with a gentle mix of worry and exasperation. "And why don't you sell the farm and come live with us? We have plenty of room, and the grandkids miss you so much." Yet, Sarah found it impossible to leave behind a life built together with David. Each step away felt like a fresh heartbreak, a loss of him all over again. So she lingered among the fading echoes of the past, barely alive, watching seasons pass through smudged windows as she did the bare minimum to keep the farm from crumbling. In those early days, warm casseroles arrived on her porch, neighbours dropped by to offer kind words, and local church friends ensured she never sat alone during services. But as time marched on, those visits faded away, leaving her with the aching silence of solitude that no amount of understanding could ease. And yet, on one chilly December evening, something stirred that promised to shatter this quiet despair. That night began just like any other, with Sarah finishing her nightly cup of tea in David's favourite worn leather armchair, a chair that still held his familiar shape. Then, in a moment so soft it might have been a trick of her mind, a faint sound wove through the bitter wind outside. At first, she brushed it off as one of her grief-induced illusions, much like the times she thought she heard David's truck rumble in the driveway or his voice echo in the garden. But then, a weak, plaintive cry emerged again, slicing through the cold night air with a sharp urgency. "See?" Setting her tea aside, Sarah hurried to the window. The thermometer read a biting 15 degrees F, and with the wind chill making it feel even colder, the darkness outside was lit only by a lonely security light over the barn, which cast long, shifting shadows on the snow. As she peered out, the cry grew clearer, a desperate sound that stirred something deep within her. With little hesitation, she grabbed David's old coat from its hook by the door. Even after all these years, the fabric still carried a trace of his scent, motor oil, pine, and that indefinable warmth that was all his. Pulling it tightly around herself, she stepped out into the fierce cold, the wind biting at her face like tiny shards of ice, each step crunching through knee-deep snow as she made her way toward the barn. The security light's glow revealed a surreal scene, a landscape that shifted with every gust, as if the world itself was holding its breath. "Hello? Is anyone there?" she called out, her voice echoing into the vast, white expanse. In answer came a series of weak, desperate yelps from behind a pile of lumber David had stacked by the barn wall during a summer long past. This lumber, meant for a chicken coop he had planned to build the following spring, now stood as a silent marker of unfinished dreams. With careful steps around the wood, Sarah discovered a tiny bundle nestled in the gap between the lumber and the barn wall. There, huddled and trembling, was not just any puppy. It was a small, pitiful creature whose fur, which might have shone golden under kinder circumstances, was now matted with ice and dirt, revealing every fragile rib. The little animal, no older than 4 or 5 months, shivered so hard that its whole body seemed to quake. When it managed to lift its head, its eyes met hers, conveying a deep sorrow mixed with a spark of hope. In that moment, something inside Sarah began to crack. Just a little break in the thick wall of grief that had surrounded her heart. "Oh, you sweet thing," she whispered, kneeling down in the cold without a thought for the chill seeping through her pajama pants. "Ooh, here's." The puppy's tail gave the faintest twitch of greeting, and when it tried to stand, Sarah saw that its back left leg was badly injured, bent unnaturally, and a frayed piece of rope around its neck hinted at a past that was all too dark. Could this be a case of abandonment or something even more sinister? Without a pause, Sarah wrapped the coat around the shivering animal, lifting it gently as if cradling a handful of delicate autumn leaves. Its tiny nose nuzzled her neck with a soft sigh. "Oh, don't worry, little one," she murmured, holding the puppy close as if promising a new beginning. Though the local veterinary clinic had officially closed for the night, Dr. James Thompson's number was still saved on her phone, a remnant of the many times she'd called him during David's various mishaps on the farm. The last call had been on that dreadful night when David collapsed in the barn, and though Dr. Thompson had arrived too late to do anything but pronounce time of death, his presence had been a comfort. Now, with a voice thick with sleep yet determined, he told her, bring him in right away. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. Despite the heavy snow that made the drive treacherous, Sarah drove with a focus that felt long forgotten. The tiny puppy, lying in David's old coat on the passenger seat with shallow, steady breaths, was a fragile hope in the midst of the storm. Every few minutes, she reached over to touch it, reassuring both the little creature and herself that they were still connected. When Sarah arrived at the clinic, she found Dr. Thompson waiting at the door, his silver hair untamed and his coat thrown over his flannel pajamas. Pajamas. Helping her carry the puppy inside, his expression turned grave as he saw the animal under the bright clinic lights. "It's a miracle he's still alive," he said after a thorough checkup. The puppy was suffering from severe malnutrition, dehydration, and had a broken leg that looked like it might have been hit by a car several days ago. There was also minor frostbite on its paws, though they had caught that in time. As Dr. Thompson carefully cleaned and treated the little one's wounds with gentle, weathered hands, Sarah watched in a mix of awe and fear. Will he make it through the next 24 hours? She wondered, her heart pounding with hope and anxiety. Determined, Sarah declared. "I want to take him home," surprising herself with the strength in her voice, a resolve she hadn't felt since David's passing. Dr. Thompson's eyes met hers over his glasses, recalling the same look from that terrible night when he had urged her to let someone else handle the arrangements for David. This little guy is going to need round-the-clock care, feeding every 2 hours, medications, monitoring his temperature, and gentle physical therapy once that leg starts healing. Are you sure you can handle all that? He asked, softly. Sarah looked down at the puppy, now sleeping under a warm blanket, its chest rising and falling in shallow rhythm. Something in its fighting spirit, the will to survive despite everything, filled her with a sense of purpose. "Yes," she said firmly, her voice steady for the first time in 437 days. "So, I'm sure," and with that a new chapter began. The little puppy, now named Hope for the bright gleam in its eyes and the promise it carried, started its slow journey to recovery. Each day brought a mix of setbacks and small victories. The strict feeding schedule set by Dr. Thompson had Sarah preparing a special mix of puppy formula and soft food every 2 hours, warming it just right so Hope could digest it slowly. There were nights when Hope vomited, causing Sarah's heart to drop, and mornings when fever sent her racing him back to the clinic. But then came the triumphs, the day Hope wagged his tail with real excitement instead of a faint twitch, or the morning he barked a sound that startled them both and made Sarah laugh, a laugh that hadn't come in years. Even during physical therapy, when handling his injured leg, Hope never growled or snapped. He just looked at her with trusting eyes, as if he understood that the pain was a part of healing. That day when Hope managed to take a few steps across the kitchen floor, Sarah found herself crying, not out of sorrow, but pure, unadulterated joy. It was the first time in so long that tears of happiness replaced the heavy grief in her eyes. As Hope grew stronger, so did Sarah. She began taking short walks around the property, first carrying him when he grew tired, then gradually letting him explore on his own. With every careful step, the daily routine filled a void she hadn't even known was there. The neglected property began to show signs of care once more. Flower beds were cleared and tended, broken fence posts mended, and the old garden revived with memories of David's gentle guidance. One crisp morning, about 2 months after Hope had come into her life, Sarah sat on the porch watching him chase snowflakes, his new favourite game, when her neighbour, Ellen Martinez, stopped by. "Why hardly recognise you, Ellen?" Sarah said, surprised by the visitor's warmth as she settled into the chair with 2 steaming cups of coffee, a habit Ellen had clung to through all her visits. Ellen smiled and replied, "You look alive again, Sarah." "And it's not just you. The whole place feels like it's waking up from a long winter. With that, a spark of hope lit up the quiet air, leaving Sarah wondering what other surprises life might hold. In time, Hope transformed into a handsome young dog. Young dog. His once matted fur had grown into a gleaming golden coat that caught the sunlight with every movement. The ribs that had been so visible were now hidden beneath healthy muscle, though he still carried a slight limp. A permanent reminder of his painful past that only made him more special. One early spring morning, while working in the garden that she had neglected the previous year, Sarah unearthed a surprise that made her heart swell. Digging through the soil where David's daffodils had been planted the autumn before he died, she found them reaching eagerly for the sun, just as he had promised they would. Hope bounded over, tail wagging furiously, as if to say, look, what I found. And with that, Sarah whispered, what a gift, just like Daddy left for us. The moment was a quiet celebration of memories and new beginnings, drawing her ever deeper into a life filled with possibility. Evenings began to hold a special kind of magic. Sarah would sit on the porch swing, the very one David had built for their 30th anniversary, with Hope's head resting gently on her lap as the sun set over the Vermont mountains, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. As she reflected on how much her life had changed in recent months, the weight of her grief seemed light. Hope hadn't replaced David, nothing ever could, but he had shown her how to live again, to love again, and most importantly, to believe in hope. Soon, word of Sarah and Hope's journey spread through the community. It began with Ellen sharing their story at church and grew when Dr. Thompson mentioned the remarkable recovery of both the dog and his owner. Before long, local animal rescue groups and shelters started reaching out, asking if Sarah would consider fostering other animals in need. Each new call added another thread to the tapestry of her healing, leaving her to wonder what adventures might lie ahead. Over the next few years, the Mitchell farm transformed in ways Sarah had never imagined. With help from the community, including generous contractors donating their time and materials, the old barn was turned into a proper animal rehabilitation centre. Sarah used her savings and a small grant from a local foundation to set up secure kennels, a quarantine area for new arrivals, and even a small medical treatment room where Dr. Thompson could care for the animals without the need for trips to the clinic. Hope proved to be an extraordinary therapy dog, always knowing just how to approach a new, frightened animal with the perfect mix of energy and gentleness. His own past had given him a unique understanding of pain and recovery. Soon, the first big success came. A three-legged cat named Trinity, once trapped in an abandoned building, blossomed into a confident, loving creature who now greeted everyone at the sanctuary. Then, there was Bruno, a senior German shepherd who had lost his way after his owner passed away. Hope spent hours lying quietly by Bruno's kennel, offering silent company until the old dog slowly began to join the world again. Each triumph sparked new hope, and soon the sanctuary earned a reputation as a safe haven for those who had been given up on by other shelters. Even Rebecca flew in from Seattle to help when the sanctuary officially opened. Watching her grandchildren play with Hope and the other animals, Sarah felt a sense of wholeness returning to her life. A quiet certainty that every ending was really a new beginning. 5 years after that fateful snowy night, Sarah stood in the doorway of her farmhouse, gazing at the transformed property as the sunset bathed everything in a warm glow. The sanctuary now welcomed dozens of animals, each with their own tale of survival. Tale of survival. Hope, with a touch of grey around his muzzle but still bursting with puppy-like enthusiasm, sat faithfully by her side. "We did good, didn't we, boy? Boy?" she said softly, reaching down to scratch his ears. In that moment, as Hope's soulful eyes met hers, the past and present mingled into one, a reminder that light can emerge from the deepest darkness. Sitting on the familiar porch swing with Hope nestled in her lap, Sarah reflected on how a tiny, broken puppy had sparked a journey of healing and renewal. He had taught her that second chances exist, that love can mend even the most shattered hearts, and that sometimes the most precious gifts come when you least expect them. As the first star appeared in the Vermont sky, Sarah smiled, convinced that somewhere David was smiling too. And in saving Hope, she had found her own salvation. A quiet, powerful promise that every ending truly marks the start of something new. What will tomorrow bring in this journey of rediscovery?